Hey, 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 welcome. I am so excited that you have decided to spend a little bit of time with us this evening. This is night one of 8 nights without disrupting your day, your business, your life. But it's 8 nights with 8 phenomenal thought leaders. And we have such a person with us this evening. But before I tell you who is here, and you may have seen it if you've been watching socials and stuff, I've been talking about her. But this is the kickoff of the first official virtual summit that we will continue to move forward using iron under the brand of Iron Sharpens Iron. That's because for the month of February, our goal is to spotlight, highlight, and give you thought leaders and give you skills and knowledge you need to move your life forward, your business forward from wherever it is, whether it's startup or seasoned, whether you are solo or you've got a team, to move your business forward in this creator space, as well as just being people who are working, living our lives to the fullest. Because everything that you think of is in business, you, the person, you're the business. And so tonight, we have somebody with us who is going to talk just about that. You being your brand, your personal brand at work, whether it's a corporate job, your business, your nonprofit, your personal brand is so critical. And I'm super honored. She's back for the second year in a row, Miss Cher Jones. I'm going to have her on in a minute, but I want to tell you a bit about her. She's the CEO and founder of Socially Active. I think I said that correctly, but she just goes into corporations and help their employees develop, build, and strengthen their personal brand. And she's been doing this work now about 14 years. And so I'm super excited. All of that is great. I just think she's a phenomenal woman, and I'm happy to have her here. I'm going to get her in here so you guys can say hello to her and she can greet you. She can greet you. Cher, here you are. So glad to have you with us. How are you doing?
I am excited to be here. We have so much to talk about, and we got brands to build in this conversation.
We got brands. See, she's already working, y'all. She is already working. What? I can't believe it. She is already
Listen,
doing it. I want to, before you get into all of that, no one can tell your story like you can tell your story. No one can say who Cher Jones is better, and I don't even know if you've officially decided what you're gonna do about that last name yet.
I know it's such a worthy conversation, isn't it?
It is a worthy conversation, but what I would love to ask, I'm gonna start asking questions, but I just first off wanna ask you to tell everybody who you are, what your platform is better than I can, and then we'll come back and just kinda chop it up and have a great conversation.
Amazing. So, as you guys know, my name is Cher Jones for now, and I have a social. Well, my company's called Socially Active, and it is a training company that focuses on helping people build their personal brands at work for work. So, really, it comes down to helping people communicate their value in person, online, anywhere, anytime. Basically, communicate your value on demand. And I want to make sure that when you think about your personal brand at work, you are developing a brand that helps you thrive in your role right now. It is putting you on track, you growing your career, and also ensuring that you're advocating for yourself, your team, and your company too. So these three areas, as far as your role, your career, and the company, when you put together that trifecta, you become a very powerful, intentional, and strategic human, and you're going in the right direction. So that's a little bit about me, and I think you're going to ask me about my story, but I'll wait till you chime in.
I am going to ask, we got a few people who are in the building. They're in the chat with us. So I'm gonna say hello to you all real quick, and a couple of them should be in the lounge with us. So I don't know what they think they're doing, but of course, I'm gonna just try to get this up here and say hello to some folks. Folks, hello to Frank Jackson, and David Hunt isn't said he's in here, but I don't see him. And Frank is in the lounge, y'all waving at us. And this is someone, I think you know this gentleman, Mr.
Oh,
Steve
yeah, I
Worthy.
know. Is that worthy conversation that
He's
we were
that
talking
worthy
about?
conversation we're gonna have. All right. And hello, David Hunt. You are here. What what are you talking about first to say new? I'm not even doing newbie tonight. We're gonna do something different. We're gonna do something different. And this is a wonderful, wonderful woman, Miss Yolanda B from Women's Talk with Yolanda. So glad to have you in the building with us this evening. I'm looking forward to talking with you further later. We have the emotional CEO, Joshua Uell, with us. And I think you know this gentleman. James
Mr. J
Hick. No heckling, James Hicks. No heckling allowed. And hey, Miss Tora, how you doing? Toronado. Yes, yes, yes. And James Hicks is like, nice play on words, Mrs. W.
You know that's what I do.
That's what you do. So we've got some folks who are here and they're for the content, not just for entertainment. And we also just had another gentleman, Philip. So glad to have you from Step of Faith. I always want to say Next Leap of Faith, but Next Step of Faith here with us. So glad to have you. And you did a great job on doing your January wrap up. So awesome, awesome. And we got somebody else who just joined us. So we got folks who are in the lounge. Later on, you will see a link you can go to if you want to have some private time with our guest today and ask questions that you won't ask in public. But y'all, eventually, I'm gonna learn how to work a computer. I promise.
Eventually.
I've been working with computers since 1980,
I
and
was
I
going to
still
say,
say I'm gonna learn how to work with them one day. One day, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it.
exactly.
So, so we're gonna kind of talk about uh, this personal branding from, like, I'm gonna call it three buckets,
Yeah.
kind of, right? The foundation of personal branding, just kind of big picture. What's the foundation of it? We're going to talk about some strategies and tools for being effective in building, creating, growing, and solidifying, sustaining. And then the third piece is just any kind of insights in where you see things changing, because so much has changed over the last two
Mhm.
years that I'm sure you've got some thoughts on where we as professionals need to be thinking and looking and going out. It's so if everyone, I'm going to say this, and moderators, please help for those who are in the building. Thank you all for being moderators. Please help and make sure that our community asks questions and that I don't miss somebody's question. Make sure you call it out for me and I can see it and we can make sure at the appropriate time. And for those, again, who want to ask a private question, right above my head is a URL. If you go there, you can still get in on the summit and get in this evening to come and ask questions after we go off air. All right, so I'm gonna bring Miss Cher back, and I'm gonna do this kind of in an interview style, just let you go and give value, and I'm gonna start with something a little bit personal.
Okay.
This platform that you have, that you've built about building a personal brand at work and for work, what inspired you to start that and focus on that particular very important topic?
So I believe that most people, especially entrepreneurs, you're going to end up, you have to iterate to innovate. When I originally started Socially Active, my background is in corporate communications and PR, plus broadcasting, plus anything to do with communications, I've pretty much had a role in at some point during my career. And, typically objects appear a lot younger than they actually are. This is my 50th year. So, being alive. So, you definitely get a lot of experience in different aspects along the way. And so back in 2011, I started recognizing how important social media was. And I saw an opportunity at that point, while I was still working for the city of Toronto, managing a division's communications at the time, to start really pushing how are we as corporate communicators leveraging social media as a part of our strategies. Anyways, uh, fast forward a couple of years, I realized that my internal clients are now referring me to external agencies to say, hey, you should have Share Speak and train and all that stuff. And then I developed training programs inside the city of Toronto's um, for their employees. And it was a really interesting moment because when I decided to make the leap full time, I saw myself as a social media trainer. I was on LinkedIn, I was using Facebook and Twitter. Those were the hot buttons way back then. And then the interesting thing was I had a friend who said, "I want you to speak on personal branding." And at that time, I'm like, I'm social media. What do you mean personal branding? And anyways, that became, and this is in 2013, and I was already full time. I'm a social media trainer. And he said, "Yeah, I want you to speak on some personal branding." And then I started thinking about it, and I immediately saw the connection around your own brand. It was, I mean, the strategies back then are not the strategies now, but I did my first talk on personal branding called 99 Problems, but My Brand Ain't One, and it is on YouTube. I got receipts for it, and it literally in 2013, and that set me on a path. And I continued over the years. I was working with entrepreneurs, I was working with leaders, I was working with people that we would now call influencers and personal brands and stuff like that. But over the last 4 years, I recognized there was a missing segment in the market that was not getting, or a segment in the market that was not getting served. It's the average professional who wants to crush it in their role and who's not necessarily trying to be a thought leader. And so
Mm,
most of the information out there, most of the tips, they are specifically for people who are um, high volume salespeople. So they're in B2B sales, they're social selling, they're marketers because they're marketing their business or marketing a product, or they're influencers. And that's a whole different kettle of fish of the activity required. And of course, job seekers. But what about the regular person who just wants to ensure that their personal brand advocates for them when they're not in the room? And they were looking at the high volume stuff, which is the typical advice that was out there. And they're like, I'm not doing all that. And they're absolutely right. They don't need to become a creator to do well at their job. So as I started to think about it more strategically, and as I start to even look back at my own personal branding journey and saw how effective that was, even when I wasn't necessarily drawing up frameworks for it. It got me my brand, even back then, got me in rooms that I wouldn't have been able to get in otherwise. So when I started to recognize truly the needs of this audience, the one who wants to show up, be credible, be visible for the right people, I started to really dive into what do those strategies look like, because they're not what is typical that they see online, and building a brand at work for work. So that's something that I've really, even in the messaging, I have been changing. That's been a very solid message for the last 2 years, and it's been 4 years that I kind of slid into this lane, and then 2 years ago I just
okay. Let's
niche
see.
and I
Yep. Okay. I don't know if this is me or someone else. I'm going to do this real quick. There it is.
there I
She's
am.
there you are. Th-
Yeah,
You know what? Tech be one to tech.
I know.
It's just you want to tech.
It's
So,
okay.
guys, there's a link on the screen with
Yes.
her. Please, if you have additional, and there will be more links available and more information available, but don't skip on. Like just in her opening, you can tell how powerful she is.
Thank you.
So don't sleep on it.
And
Just
let me
saying.
just preface that link down there. So, what we're linking to is a personal brand assessment, and it is an in-depth assessment of what it takes to build your personal brand at work for work. And what you'll see is that the questions that I'm asking you, I'm taking a look at your brand and I'm taking a look at it. Do you have the right tools to build your brand at work for work? Are you doing the right activities to get the visibility and create the credibility that you need to really crush it in your role, build your career, and also again advocate for yourself, your team, and the company? And
Mhm.
then what I'm looking at is you have the tools. Do you have the act? Are you in the right activities? And is it working? And those are the 3 things that I measure, and then there is a 4th category where I look at, is branding something that's going to significantly move the dial for you? And so this is not an assessment for the faint of heart. It's gonna take you at least 4 minutes to complete. So it's not do you like Beyoncé or Taylor Swift? Is
She
that your
said at
brand or
least 4 minutes.
this? Yes, at least. And no, because people are like, "Wow, this is pretty intense," and it's free, and you'll get a report. And you're always encouraged to book a call to talk about your results with me and see where you can go. So that's what I would suggest you do, and yeah, we can go on from there.
And gang, one of the moderators, the emotional CEO, has dropped the link right in chat in comments tonight. So you don't even have to type it out. You don't have to screenshot it. You don't have to do any of that. Just click on the link and go there and go to town. Again, this is personal branding for us regular folk. Us regular folk.
Right.
And I'm gonna just kind of maybe use me. I came up in a time where it was do your job, keep your head down, keep your nose clean, right?
Mm,
So those who are maybe in my generation, thereabouts, if that's our perspective, this idea of having a brand, when we think of it as something big like Coke and whoever else, it can be a scary, and C, it can feel overwhelming if we
yeah.
let it.
Yeah. And
But it
that's
doesn't have to
it
be.
doesn't have to be. Exactly. It doesn't have to be, and it's because of what we are exposed to. Again, if you look up on LinkedIn tips, or if you look up how to build a personal brand, it's going the content creator route to achieve those specific goals. But your personal brand at work, for me, my focus is on how do you communicate your value? And is it a holistic communication, meaning that is it wherever I meet you, is it consistent? Is it, and your brand is both digital and in person. We cannot treat one different from the other anymore because some people will validate you and your credibility online first because they're finding out who's in this meeting, who just sent me this email, who's that presenting next week, and why wasn't it me? So they're looking at you up to assess you, and also, they're looking you up to see if they're going to keep you in this current climate. In this current climate where everything is precarious at this point, I think that it is beholden onto every single professional who wants to thrive in the role to make sure their value is undeniable. So you need to be communicating your value online, but also face to face, because that's the thing where over the last 2 years, as I saw how things were moving and how digital we were becoming, especially with AI, and everybody's becoming that new pop-up thought leader, which is, some people are, but some people are like literally when you have a conversation, you recognize they're a blog post deep as far as their thoughts, and they can't apply all the content that they've been putting out there in real life. But I know I'm not nice today.
You went there. You
I went
you
there.
went
I
there.
will always go there. And, the interesting thing is when you're showing up at work, you a lot of people, for example, when they introduce themselves, this is a perfect opportunity for you to communicate your value to a room of people who do not know who you are. And most people will introduce their name, their title, and keep it moving. And now what you are doing when you do that is you're depending on my knowledge of what your title means. And if I don't even know what it means at all, it's just like, okay, whatever. I shrug, keep it moving. There's absolutely no value or relevance or even context to why you're having the conversation. A lot of times, titles are not great marketers of your actual value and the work that you do. So people need to learn how to communicate their role like it's as succinctly as a title. So that's the difference. And so being able to do that, especially in, let's say, for example, technology positions where tech and anything in the technical space, so not just technology um, roles, but also technical roles, oftentimes they're seen as utilities and they're not advocating for the value to the business. And so by taking the extra time to articulate what it is they do and how they serve in their introduction will completely set the stage for why I need to listen to you. And then also in the middle of conversations, people need to be able to get comfortable credibility dropping. So, talking about relevant successes, examples, wins, experience, so that you can transfer trust to that person that you are saying, we are going to change your entire way of doing everything. And they're already
And
looking at you.
literally mean it.
Yes. So tell me why I should trust you. And most people will sit there and they'll do the Q&A dance back and forth because now you know that feeling, Florence, when someone is asking you questions because they're just trying to see, do you know your stuff? A
Mhm.
lot of times you could really comfortably shut it down so that you can transfer trust by addressing, oh, I see why you're asking me these questions because doing creating this type of change is scary, installing something new, this new program, making these changes, it's going to cause a disruption. And I've seen it before. In fact, when we were working with this team, we were able to minimize that disruption because we did this and that. All of a sudden that person's now, oh, okay, I kind of trust you a little bit more. But what we need to recognize, I know I'm going off on a little tangent here, but to bring it home, you need to be able to read the room and communicate your value through your experience, knowledge, and expertise in context to that person's problem. So my training helps people do that, whether they're introducing themselves, whether they're credibility dropping, or whether they are making sure that they're including the relevant information that communicates their value of their role on their profiles. Because when people look you up, they are actually asking you for information. Tell me about you. So why don't you
Mhm.
set them up for success?
Yeah. It's interesting that you were just talking about that yesterday, I was having a conversation with someone, in my corporate environment,
Mhm,
and we were chatting about something. And I said, "One of the things that I do when I start something new or start a new project, I look at what's working, I look at what's not working, but I
mhm.
also look at where's the gap, and it's usually in the space dealing with the people.
Yeah.
They're not people. It's being in technology, even though it's in healthcare, everyone pays attention to the tech, to the tool, to the all of that, but they don't
Mhm.
often pay attention to the people. And what I do is say, okay, in the role that I have, what can I do to close this gap? Because we're going to get to the end. And I've often said it's a bridge that's going to be like that. instead of like that.
Right.
And I've said that for a long time. And it happens because exactly what you said. You don't know where your value is and you're not paying attention to where there's a little bit of misalignment, but that
Right.
little bit of misalignment can make your project be completely unsuccessful.
Yes. Yes. Because they're not adopting because they don't see the value. So you can get all the way up to, let's say, having the icon on the desktop. It's done. It's like, no, it's not. Because if they don't trust what's behind the click, if they don't see the value of the change, the value of the project, the way that you're literally selling it to them. You're not being a salesperson, but you're actually selling
Mhm.
your ideas. You're influencing their receptivity of how of why they should actually use what you're doing, or trust your advice, trust your counsel. And when people actually know what, so there's a lot of stats right there out there where, even a lot of CEOs don't know what IT does. They can't communicate the value. But that comes back to all the people within technology who need to communicate the value of their work, so that the business sees the value, and they don't see them as utilities. They don't see them as, you install stuff, you fix stuff, my computer's broken. You're just like, I don't do that.
No, I don't do that.
Yeah,
I don't do that.
yeah.
So while we're writing, gang, I'm gonna invite you to start putting questions in, the questions that you put a cute colon in front of it, put a question in so that we can get those. And if you want, you can come on into the lounge, go to the site that I shared with you earlier, and you'll immediately get an email that'll tell you how to get here. And if you don't, you can always um, send a quick email. I'll just say, "We can get you in. We'll figure it out." But I don't want you to lose track of that. So, I'm gonna move on to the next question because I could keep talking about that topic. That right there. Woof. So from a foundational standpoint for you, you
Yes.
shared how you moved from social media into this personal branding. You were doing in the public sector, and then you went into private practice. What kind of
Mhm.
challenges have you faced making that transition for yourself?
Interesting.
Any?
So,
Any?
yeah, I mean, believing, okay, so so are we talking about just the transition of switching from the bigger niche to the
Yeah,
micro
from the
niche?
bigger niche to the micro niche.
Okay, so, I mean, what everybody always is challenged is, if I do this, I'm gonna cut off that opportunity because I can do that too. And
Uh-huh.
that you it's like you gotta pick your horse and bet on it. And
Oh, wow.
and it's easier said than done. And one of the things that I think people are or feel like they're forced to do is forced to niche too early. Because if you can't claim it, I knew that when I finally got here, I was good with the niche. The only thing I wasn't good at is, I'll still take that. Okay, I can still do that, but I'm going to put it out there publicly that this is what I do, but I'll still take that role. At some point, you have to start cutting it off. And that, give yourself grace when you're doing it, but you do have to start saying no to the things you no longer do. And be just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Or doesn't mean you
Mm.
do. Right?
Just
And
because you
for me,
can
that
doesn't
was,
mean you should.
yes. Yes. And that took a bit for me, and I think everybody goes through that, because you realize what you're cutting off and you're like, well, that was a really good opportunity. But if it's no longer aligning with where your brand is going, stop looking backwards. And
And
it's
that's true,
okay.
and that's true even in the traditional workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it
And
so I don't want people to, because yours is your personal brand at work for work. I don't
correct.
want everyone to lose sight of that. Yes, we can be small business solopreneurs, definitely applies,
Mhm.
but her specialty is at work for work.
Yeah.
And it so resonates again because of the generation I come from and what the way our we were trained to
Yes.
think. Go to work, put your head down, do your job, and that's all you gotta do.
And they'll
That is not all
notice.
you gotta do.
No.
That is not all you gotta do. Any that like train left the building, left the whole
100.
station, and you standing on the platform with your suitcases, and it left you if you stay stuck there.
Bye-bye. Bye,
Bye.
Felicia. And
So,
that's the challenge, Florence, that is really the challenge that I mean, especially the sweet spot. So, there's 2 sweet spots I love. I love early professionals coming into the game, and especially right now, Gen Z has such a bad rap. So, the easiest way to fix is your individual personal brand. So, you are no longer categorized as Gen Z, you're in a category of 1, your name, right? So, that is great. The other is I love what I call a prime timer. This is when you are at the stage of your career where your wisdom, your knowledge, and your confidence converge, and it's a very short, relatively window. It's like maybe like a 10-year window where you are at the top of your game. Some people have 2 prime times, but the real one is, I think a lot of them are like at this point, they are elder millennials into that whole Gen X range right now before they move into their legacy mindset. They are in their prime earning years and again, prime confidence years and prime wisdom and skill level years. Like this is that season where what they do now is going to set them up for the long term, or they can explore things because of this convergence of their experience. And the other piece is that they are not rattled as easily. So if someone has a different philosophy around personal branding, even the exact lane that I'm in, which there are not a lot of people in my lane right now, but if someone has a different philosophy and they want to butt heads with, at least respectfully butt heads with me, I'm okay. You can't knock me off because I'm good in my lane. I know what I know, and I have seen it work, and I'm confident. I'm open for all learning, but I'm just saying, like, this is that level of confidence that it is the best. So, those in their careers in their prime time, they are also the same people who grew up in the generations of put your head down, just work hard. They will notice you'll get the tap. The tap ain't coming. The
tap ain't
branded
coming.
wheel gets the grease. Okay. And you need to recognize that. You could have all the experience in the world, but if no one sees you or if no one's talking about you, they're just glad you're doing your job and they get to forget about you because somebody else who's saying, "Hey, look over here. Look at what I bring to the table. Look at where I want to grow." And they're putting the audible out there. They're they're forecasting or projecting their value and forecasting their value forward, meaning where are you going to see me next? We see that, and that is those are the people who get attention. They're creating their visibility strategies. And in my world of branding, I call it there's outside in visibility strategies. So you are creating an outside brand that is specifically talking to your internal audience. So they're seeing you because they're not necessarily being seen from the inside. So you got to go out to be seen. Just like some people feel like they have to go out to get a job to come back and then they'll step up into another role. You can do that with your brand and level up quickly that way without having to move. And then, of course, their internal visibility strategies. So they've got to think about both. And they got to, again, give people the language to advocate for them when they're not in the room.
You I'm gonna go off a little bit, but
Yeah.
you've said this, and I don't want to miss it. Learning to use the language to communicate your value.
Mhm.
It's not using your language just because I know these words in this language in the United States. For the most part, it tends to be English, but whatever
Yeah.
the language may be. It's not just knowing the words, knowing how to say words. It's intentionally putting together a message to communicate what you want to communicate.
Yes. Yes. So I have a framework that I teach. And it's all about wrapping your value around the person that you're speaking to. And it's really simple. So I call it value wrapping, right? And it's really simple. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to win their attention. So that's the W, right? And what I mean by that is you are going to what matters to them before you start saying, I've done this and I graduated here. No one cares yet. You haven't won their attention. So the best way to win somebody's attention is either with empathy for the problems. So you're addressing the problems and you're bringing that up first. So that could be empathy for a fear, a frustration, a problem. So you're taking that energy of those emotions and you're addressing it. Or maybe they're just frustrated and you're going to start with that first, right? Or if it's, let's say, because it's not always a bad situation, you're not always customer servicing somebody, it could be you're excited to be here and you want to elevate with emotion. So you want to set the tone. You are the thermostat. So you can set the temperature of the conversation or of the room of the meeting, right? So that's the first thing you do. You're going to win their attention with something that they care about, something that is relevant to them. And then the next thing that you're going to have to do is, again, focusing on that relevant, right? So you're going to have relevance by revealing your role and your expertise. So now you're going to create that context bridge where it's like, okay, this is the problem, or this is the situation, this is the thing that I'm excited about. Now, let me reveal my role and expertise so I can make it make sense to your problem. And then or emotion, right? Or the thing that's happening. So you're going to talk about,
Mhm.
well, in
Right.
this position I do that and it's relevant. And then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to add credibility. So you're bringing in, you've talked about your role and your expertise, and now where's your proof, right? So you add credibility. And that could be like, well, I've worked on a project like this in the past, or we've had this specific problem, and here's what we did to solve it, and here are the results. Because this is your, here's why you can trust me moment. Here's why you want to consider me moment. And then the last thing you want to do with that, and this is what creates a brand experience with your personal brand and really creating that trust, is the P is presenting that next step, letting them know. So, what we can do, what I can do, or I'd love to know more. Whatever it is you're moving with momentum, and that way you've really wrapped your brand around the conversation, your value around that conversation, that person. You've made it relevant to them. They're listening, right? And you have now made yourself completely relevant. Whereas in the past, those people who are uncomfortable talking about their wins, their past, their excuse, their experience, it's because they're not doing it in service. Where this allows you to talk about it in service, so you don't feel like you're bragging, you don't feel like you're showing off. You're actually doing it in service to transfer trust.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Hey, gang, you got questions? You want to ask your questions? We do have people who have been commenting, Miss Share. So we're going to do this, and I'm not going to keep you all night because I could keep you all night asking you questions. I do have one or two more, but I want to, folks are greeting each other
That's amazing.
here in the chat. I'm just looking, and I saw, Philip, you had to leave. I don't see any questions. But this gentleman did grab something that you said. He said, "Just because you can doesn't mean you should." Zone of genius. And
We
Miss
have
Denise
had
says,
many conversation about that.
yeah, I'm so glad you thank you. Yes, Denise is doing phenomenal things. So this is really relevant for your business. Ape and Diva, as well as homemaking with Denise. And I
Amazing,
know,
Denise.
Philip, you needed to jump off, but we appreciate it. But gang, if you have questions, put a Q colon and please ask your question. And everybody else is, I think they're just who. Just tell me, y'all, are you got pen and paper and taking notes? You should. And if you're not, I'm gonna say this: come back, watch this again, and take notes. That
Yeah.
framework she just outlined, genius. Don't let it get past you. Just don't let it get past you. I'm gonna remind you all, you can go take her assessment and connect with her. Just saying. Just saying that you can. So I'm gonna ask you another question. And you started out in social media, and I see all the time what you're doing on a particular platform.
Yes.
So I want to ask you about that. But for someone who's maybe not heavily into the LinkedIn world or social
Mhm.
media, how would you get a newbie, what I call a newbie, started effectively using a platform like LinkedIn for personal branding? I know you're on there all the time, and I respond to
Yeah.
you and comment and stuff. But that's especially this personal brand at work for work. And I know when I hear a new name, first thing I do is go look up and see if they're on LinkedIn. That's like
Mhm.
every meeting. That's the first thing people do anymore.
Yes. So the first thing that I would start with is, again, we mentioned it earlier, it's being able to give people the language to communicate your value for you. It's your profile, number 1. Forget, like, let's not even think about activity right now. Your profile is first and foremost, the it gives you the ability to communicate your credibility, to showcase your proof. So I call it POV, proof of value. And again, giving people the language to talk about you and also to meet you for the first time. So you can set yourself up for success just by focusing on your credibility and your value articulation in your profile. So that's where I would recommend you start. So most people, when they think about their LinkedIn profiles, they're thinking about what I call the employment half down. So they're thinking about the experience section where their resume goes. And above that, that is the branded half. So that's where you should focus on your current role now. That is the primary thing that area, I believe personally, it should focus on what you're doing now and project where you're going. And you have to clearly articulate your role now. So most people, they'll put some semblance of their cover letter, or it talks about all the things they did, similar to like a job hunter or job seeker, where it's like all the things they did to get the job, even though they're not looking for a job. So I know everything you did to get your job, but I have no idea what you do in your job now. When the reason why they're looking you up is they want to find out what you do now. So take the time to articulate that, and there's some key sections to do that. So your about section, and that same framework that I shared, this is a universal framework. So it can be used in conversation when you're introducing yourself. It can be used when you are credibility dropping to share, to transfer trust. And it can also be used to help you write your bio. You never start with it being about you. You set the tone by, and you winning their attention. Your first couple of lines sets the stage. And then you are revealing your role and creating that relevance, and then after that you're adding the credibility, and then you're taking them to the next step. So the credibility part is all the things you did before, but you see the order of operations, it doesn't come till later when most people talk about where they went to school, all the things that they've done, but I don't know what you do now, and that's the most relevant piece. So I'll stop talking after I just say this, that this should be how the first thing you should focus on is how you communicate what you do today, because that's why somebody's looking you up, and you will change their bias, you will change their perception. You're not relying on their default perception, so stop default branding, right? And give them the paint the picture for them so they can see how valuable you truly are.
Wow. It's so interesting. One of our community members asked a question. So we're gonna do it. We're gonna see how this goes. Florence is
Mhm.
gonna try to do this right. Told you one day I'm gonna learn how to use a computer.
Look at that. You
Look at
learning every
that. This is a
day.
long question.
Yeah.
How do I do that? My LinkedIn has my professional career, and I have retired and teach homemaking on YouTube. I still get nursing questions, queries. So
Okay.
she's come
So
out of nursing and completely pivoted to a new career.
So what she has to do is talk about what she does now first. So that's the positioning. So she's going to reset people's ideas. So Denise, what you're going to do is you're going to reset people's ideas. You have to now reestablish who you are. And then what you do, I bet your experience nursing still it absolutely laid the foundation to what you do now. So, and that could be just skills, it could be perspectives, whatever it is, you're going to paint that bridge. So you're going to talk about what you do now, and then in the add credibility part, you're going to talk about the foundation that built who you are today and what you do. So, first, you're going to talk about what you do, and then you flip it and talk about that foundational stuff. And you can mention, no, you no longer have, you're no longer practicing in that area, but you certainly have a network or whatever, but you can establish where you are today. And that's what I recommend you do. Don't think that just because you're not working in that space, LinkedIn is not for you. It is absolutely for you. And you are setting the tone on what it is you're looking for and who it is you help and how you can help them.
There are some people who um, don't think that they need, and I'm going to stick on LinkedIn because it is the more it's geared toward that professional environment. As a, you can use any of them for
Mhm.
professional environment, in my opinion, but
Absolutely.
some may lend themselves. And people think, and I'm going to say Facebook is for my friends and my family. It's not for my job. I'm going to just
Mhm.
share this. I've seen people lose their job because they post something on Facebook to their friends and their family.
Yep.
So internet is forever.
Absolutely. The
Just
internet is
internet is
forever.
forever.
But you can
So,
fix the brand. So
yeah.
in the past, you thought, like, we were told, once that's it, that's it, it's forever. I've seen people fix their brands. And and but why have to go into fix it mode when you can be in strategic mode the entire time? And
Mhm.
the thing with LinkedIn, and this is what makes it so special, is where else are you going to have that immediate opportunity to articulate your value on what you do? I don't have to, if you take advantage of your profile, I don't even have to dig into your content to sort of figure it out. You
Mhm.
can you can lay it out for me. And I think that's the biggest thing. There's no other platform that allows you to do it that way in the way that LinkedIn does. And then also, there's no other platform where when I am viewing you online, I'm in the professional mindset. I don't have to shift from entertainment swipe TikTok mode or Instagram mode or Facebook mode. I am already in the mindset of a professional space when I'm in that space. And I think that is something that people really need to take advantage of. And then it's not just about, what you write in your about section. You can feature posts, you can feature your thought leadership, and you don't need to become the thought leader, the creator online, but you do need some proof of what you said you talk about and what you say you can do. Now show me your proof of value. Show me that you're doing it. And so that's one of the spaces where content can go, and you don't need to be a content creator to create content.
I'm so glad you said that. I've said at one point, we are all creators.
Mhm.
We all create content.
Yes.
What we have done forever,
Mhm.
almost from the time we started grade school, have created content. The very
100%
first paper you wrote, the poem you
content.
wrote, the, questionnaire that you answered, that's creating it's the content, the song that you wrote, the, whatever, the toast that you gave someone, the speech that you gave, that's all creating content.
And then we put it into a workplace mode, the report that you wrote,
The report
the
that you wrote,
documents, the
the
case
email
study,
that you sent.
the email, it can all be content. And then on top of that, even if you think about platform now, if you are part of an ERG or some sort of committee or special group, special project, that becomes a platform. And when
Mhm.
you're telling the stories on and thinking about it from a learning perspective. So what could we teach somebody out of this ERG, or what could we teach somebody out of this project? What were the wins? Why was it so successful, or why did it fail? So how can we create content to share? And it can be, and not all content's for the internet. Some of it is for email chains. Some of it is for the intranet. And if you think more like a content creator, you'd be surprised whose eyes get on it because it was share worthy. See what I did there?
Yeah. Share worthy. I love it. I love it. I love it. We did have another comment from Denise. She says, teaching young people how to become nurses is a skill set I've transferred to teaching on YouTube because you had the skill of teaching. The
Right.
topic changed, but the skill of teaching is transferable.
100%. And did it really change that much because she was in nursing before?
Right.
And now she's teaching, so she's evolved her career. This is the next step of her career, and her her LinkedIn should reflect that because she may get referrals from other people. She may be able to because now they say, "Oh, I didn't know you did that." Because that
Mhm.
is the biggest curse of missed opportunities, is somebody saying, "I didn't know."
Confession time. I
Yes.
literally had that happen today. I
Okay.
literally had that happen today. I was talking with a colleague and we were talking about some business opportunities. And she said, I was looking for someone who does what you've done, and I didn't even know you did that.
Yeah.
We passed up something because we didn't think we had anybody who had that knowledge.
Hmm.
Just saying. And I
Yeah.
do want to say hello to Harshid here. Thank you for coming through, Harshid, and listening to us. Harshid is a accessibility expert, and he definitely makes me pay attention to communicating from a lot of different perspectives, whether it's low sight, low hearing, whatever the
Mhm.
case may be, and wanting to make sure information is available for everyone. So thank you, Harshid, for being here.
And you think
David,
about
this is
that,
amazing. I didn't know you did that.
but it's
Yeah, it
true.
was my confession. I confessed.
But I bet you everybody's confessing that. I had that conversation last week. Someone didn't know, right? And how well are we, so are we default branding? So are we assuming that because we know our title, we know the work that we do, are we assuming that other people know what that means? Even
Mm,
when I moved into being very specific about the lane of personal branding that I was in, your personal brand at work for work, right? That was hyper intentional because of the world of personal branding. I don't want people to think that my main thing is social selling. Although there's all these Venn diagrams where they cross over, that is not the lane that I'm trying to own. And so you have to be, so if you, for example, if you're a product manager, what does that mean? And how is that relevant to the work you do, the industry that you're in, and the people that you serve? How are you going to be more explicit beyond that title? Because you're assuming people know. And I'm going to say it again for the people in the back, they don't know. And that I don't know is costing you incredible opportunities because
mm,
there are so many, I call it the hidden opportunity market. There are so many opportunities that are being passed along, talked about, that are not things that have to go on a job board. They're special projects. They're opportunities to speak on behalf of of your company. And if people don't even know you have that skill, if they don't know that you're going out there, you're volunteering, or for you, Florence, they know that you live stream. That is now a skill that, wait, she can go speak on the webinar. She can do the virtual presentation. She can because you do. But you got to
Mhm.
let them know.
Mhm. Yep, we do. And we have another question and a comment, but I'm going to put this question up first. Have you spoke
Okay.
about the self-limiting belief yet? I don't want to miss this perspective.
I
Self-limiting
have not.
the speaking self-limiting beliefs in terms of personal branding. Wow.
Oh,
Ooh.
let me listen. I can take y'all to church today because
Okay,
I
we
have
about to go to church.
actually about to go to church because one of my true so what there's so many different ways I could have gone with my story. One of my biggest drivers, like the why that I do things, is because I do believe that we were all created with purpose and intention, and we were given this unique our value has to do with, yes, our gifts and our skills, but it's the culmination of experience to where we are to today. All of those things have uniquely positioned us to serve our assignment because we are not giving gifts and experiences to be held in a bucket. We're supposed to be sharing in whatever way we are meant to serve. But I find that because of how competitive, especially Western culture is, and how many different things systemically are in play. There are so many opportunities where people feel that their value has been beaten down that they can't even see it anymore. So there's that side. And similar to what I know I even experience it right now, body dysmorphia, where it's like I remember the who I thought the fat me was back when I was like 20. And I was like, wow, I was fat, but I want to be that fat me now because I look back and I'm like, oh, wow, I like that fat me over there. Why did I think I was fat? Those kind of things. So it's the same thing now. So I didn't back then
Mhm.
appreciate how I looked, right? Where now I'm like, damn, girl, that hotness, I'll take that any day, right? As
Mhm.
I'm rocking into, the perimenopause era. But anyways, well, that's another conversation for another podcast. But it's the same with your value. So I believe, and I've come up this concept because of all the years I've been coaching, I see it over and over and over again. It's called value dysmorphia. When people are physically, they are not able to see the true value of what they bring to the table. So they will dismiss their value when they're in a room and they have all this experience. And that's why I love my prime timers, because they have all this experience and they dismiss it, and they can look at code, they can look at a project, they can see exactly the data, they can see exactly where something's going wrong, something's going right, what they should do, the decisions that need to be made. And that intuition, those snap judgments that are rooted in wisdom and experience and understanding and application, they pass off. Oh, I just know. Oh, I've been doing this a long time. Meanwhile, if you had somebody junior taking a look, they might not even see any of what you could see because you've seen the mistakes, you've got the scars, you've got the wins. And when you look at the culmination of your unique perspective and experience and the journey that you have taken, when you can communicate that value effectively, people trust you more. They want you on the team, but and they trust they also, and you're able to influence people more, so they trust you more, they want you on the team, and you have the strength of influence regardless of your title because you are able to communicate the value. The problem
Mhm.
is you don't see that value until you do the work to uncover and position that value. And that's where my one of my very earliest clients put me on she gave me the term, and I told her I'm taking it for the rest of my life. She said, Cher, You gave me a Dorothy moment where I recognized it was in me all along and I didn't see it. And I've seen it over and over. And it's not just a woman thing, like where, where it's like imposter syndrome, whatever. It
Mhm.
is men, women, they just do not see their value because sometimes their value is kind of beaten up or beaten out of them in the sense of just workplace and interpersonal relationships, all that kind of stuff. Or sometimes they just don't even see it until it's repositioned and presented in a way that, wow,
You
I
know,
see.
you say that. I think sometimes, again,
Mhm,
to those who've been around a minute, sometimes it's because the era that the person came through
mhm.
was all about titles and the
Yes,
office that the person sit in. So if you don't have X title or sit in that office, you're not as valuable, and the person who has this title of whatever, pick the title,
yes,
peanut butter if you want one,
right.
they're more valuable, they're more important. But at the end of the day, all of us, all humans are important. Just
Mhm.
like all humans have this exact same amount of time, all humans are important.
Let me give you an example. This is something that I talk about when I'm on stage, actually. It's a phenomenal example. The client that I had, her position was volunteer coordinator. Okay. And she was in a room where the VP of this, the VP of that, and she works in a hospital. And so in the Canadian hospital system, for example, they are run by like the customer service stuff, everything like that, the wayfinding, all that stuff, that's run by volunteers.
Mhm.
And it's a really important integral part of how that system works. And so kind of like candy striper kind of thing, but volunteers. And the interesting thing was they were planning a just some major construction in one area of the hospital. And so that entire area was a major traffic area, and the volunteers now have to work to redirect, let people know where to go, wayfinding, all that sort of thing. And so the volunteers were actually integral to this successful transformation in this area. So, anyways, so you've got the volunteer coordinator, but what people didn't know is this volunteer coordinator was responsible for 265 volunteers for the hospital's four busiest areas. Not only was she responsible for them, she hired, trained, she's responsible for their hiring, their training, their scheduling and deployment. And all of a sudden, when instead of introducing herself as just the volunteer coordinator, she shifted and was able to introduce her role rather than her title. I work in volunteer services. I'm responsible for about 265 volunteers, and I take care of all the training, the resourcing, or the sourcing, the training, and the scheduling. So I deploy them all, and I make sure that they're where they need to be, as well as making sure they have the right resources for their role. So I am here at your service to be able to help you as we develop the strategy to ensure this goes off without a hitch. Something to that effect when she
Mhm.
introduced herself. But all of
Mhm.
a sudden, she became the most important person in the room, regardless of the fact that her title did not reflect her value. She has a team of 260 people, over 260 people, but she was called a coordinator, which completely gets diminished. But yet, can you imagine managing 260 people?
That's a big job.
Yeah,
That is a
huge
big
job.
job. That is a
Unfortunate
huge
title,
job.
huge. And here's what was even more interesting with her role. So she that hospital, one of the biggest hospitals in Canada, their volunteer division was paper driven. So everybody had these binders and you just update it with binders. Well, when she got there, she did a whole digital transformation where she took all the binders, and they went kicking and screaming with that as far as the leadership was her direct leadership and team was concerned. They didn't want to change their system, but she developed it off the side of her desk, and it transformed the volunteer management. So she had a complete digital transformation project, And
And they didn't even
so
recognize it.
and they didn't recognize it until everybody else did.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
Exactly. So I'm going to ask you one last question, but I do want to come back to something because you will recognize this. Mr. Harshid said, where did it go? I want to get this up here because this is uh I remember Miss Liberty White. We both know Miss Liberty
yes.
White bringing Miss Cher Jones to office hours second hour if I remember correctly talking about branding.
Yes, she did.
Yes,
Yes,
she
she did, and
did.
in fact, I just was texting with her this morning.
Oh, and I think I was texting with her last week. Okay, and I'm soaking it all in. Thank you so much again. You are most welcome, sir. And we've got somebody here in the lounge with us, David Hunt, saying, "I'm glad to be a fly on the wall. This is so good."
Thank you, David. Thank you, Archie.
And he's commenting in both the lounge and in on YouTube.
Amazing.
Amazing. So as we begin to wrap up, because I promise I'm not going to keep you all night. I want you to do a little bit of maybe forecasting of like from your perspective, where do you see the future of personal branding? What's your vision of the future personal branding for work at work for everyday people? We're not
Yeah.
talking the executive who can have
Mhm.
everybody around him, just regular people like me, regular people. What's your vision for us, and where do you see us going, and your help in helping us
Mhm.
get there?
So the foundational piece I really want people to dial into how they articulate their value in a succinct way that they're comfortable doing that. I think that foundationally will take you so far. And it's very important that you have that holistic approach from conversational credibility dropping to your introductions to your profiles because it gives people the language to talk about you. You create that experience, so that's incredibly important. I think if most people, if they just start there and have that set up and have a full profile, the upper half where they are thinking about the branding, where they are focused on what it is they do now and how they serve, and then why you can trust them coming in third rather than starting with all the things they've done. It's about what you do, not what you've done first. And then so you do that, and then take care of the visual elements because it just upgrades the experience when people see you. So I'm talking about your profile picture, your headline photo, or your header photo as well. But then start thinking about once you've nailed your language, the next thing you want to start thinking about is what proof do I have? And that could be proof in the form of a milestone that you are, for example, you're celebrating 20 years in an industry, 25 years, whatever, in an industry, or your team has there was a launch of a particular product and your team crushed it and they beat all their metrics or you learned this from your team. You need to be able to talk about that. Or if you work for an incredible company that gives you the opportunity to share what you do as a team from a team building perspective, if there's a social component of your work where you get to work in the communities, they or anything that showcases culture, you want to be able to talk about that. And that goes to my outside in visibility strategy because when you start positioning your work and the company you work for and you are talking about them in an engaging way, so in a scroll stopping way, I have formats and stuff like that that I teach teams how to talk about their work, how to talk about their clients in a way that works for outside world. And then also again creating that proof, so that's where if you want to be recognized for your work, sometimes if you're not getting the level of recognition that your work deserves, sometimes you got to go out to go in. So you can talk about lessons learned from a project where you own that project and you got the nice job and then kept it moving, right? But you're like, wait,
Mhm.
no, we got to camp on this. We got to own this for a second. You can take that knowledge outside. And the way that you do that is you create content for who you were 3 years ago with this new knowledge that you wish 3 years ago you knew that? Because there's a lot of people who are 3 years ago you right now that could learn from the lessons learned. So you can create content around something like that. Again, you do not have to be a regular content creator to create content. This is just your proof. And with all the tech now, I have like there's no excuse. And again, this is I'm not advocating that you're out there creating content regularly unless you want to, unless you have that goal to do so. But what I've integrated, and this has been something where I've really spent the last year, more than last year, but specifically and intentionally the last year of integrating AI into the work that I do and teaching people how to do, I call it accelerated intelligence, my accelerated intelligence workflow. So they are leveraging AI and their own voice. So their voice, I give them frameworks where they can voice record their thoughts, and then a prompt that takes the transcript and processes the thoughts and then helps them create content. So the beautiful thing about that is they have another Dorothy moment. Like, oh my gosh, that's my words. That's what I thought. It's not AI writing a blog post for you. So there are ways that it has now become doable, and workflows that I keep on refining as tech keeps on getting better, and the prompts, you just have to keep refining, but it is doable. So that's the outside world of getting that visibility from the outside world, and it's incredible. And then there's the inside visibility. There are so many channels, from email channels that you can celebrate a win, that you can create internal content and share the wins, share the knowledge, share what's going on, and make it look like content. And it could be an email to the right leaders who would be so happy to see this inside play happening, right? Or if you are so lucky to have um, a intranet, or you can create a group on a Slack channel where you're sharing your wins, you're sharing who's on your team, you're sharing things that will get attention. And if you're doing it in a service centric way, so there's different angles to take on this,
Mhm.
it won't look like you're bragging. It has to be in service. So it's just how you share, how you position and share the content. So people are served first, but they're also informed that that's what you do. So, yeah, there, and then it's also about how are you connecting and building relationships with the right people internally that can advocate for you using your external brand and your external brand. And
Mm.
they
Yeah, yeah,
also,
yeah.
'cause yeah, and I'll say one more thing, and then, we can go to town on that, but the biggest thing that I am hearing, especially in leadership programs where they're matching, um, high potential leaders with senior executive, level, leaders, is that the senior executive level leaders don't know what they want. They don't know how to talk about them. They don't have the proof that they need so that they can properly open the door, right? So the relationships are not going as far as they need to. But if they are able to look on their profile, especially if you're shy, you can put all that language out there in a service centric way that now someone can take it and run. This is who I'm opening a door for, like all that stuff. So I just think it's so important, and there's so many other things, but I will stop there because hopefully, this is putting people in the right mindset of how they can use their brand at work for work.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, my goodness, this has been such a treat. This has been such a treat. So, guys, if you have not joined us, we do have a couple people here in the lounge with us. We're going to have some private time, just a little bit of time, not a whole bunch, little private time with Cher to ask those questions that we're not going to ask in public and get those real frank answers that she would soften it, but now she's going to really give it to us. um, and we'll be back here on Friday, and we will have the next person up, Kirk Nugent, and you will just take this conversation and keep going with it to grow us. Again, this is all about us growing in our
And
careers, in our business as creators and as creative
absolutely.
people because we're all creative people. we all create. And our
And the one
business
thing I want
of
oh, so I'm
us
sorry.
is growing, and this is gonna grow us. And I thank you all for being with me. I'm gonna let Cher get a drink, and I'm gonna close us out, and then I'm gonna say goodnight. So,
And Florence, before we go, I wanna
yes,
say just
ma'am.
one thing to everybody watching
Absolutely.
on YouTube. This is one of those things that you've gotta take the time, effort, and energy and invest in your brand, invest in your team's brand, and if this is something that you believe that can help you in your role, this is something that your company should be paying for. And I have workshops. So I have one called the 4-hour upgrade, and it focuses specifically on your role and articulating the value of your role. So your entire team can do it. And when you can advocate for the value of your team, and also making sure that you guys are all set up for success, and that you have the introduction, you have the ability to credibility drop, you have the clear articulation of what you do now, that value, it will go a long way for building trust. So I want to let you know that as you're hearing this, you don't need to shoulder the burden or the expense by yourself when this would value your entire company and your team and the work that you do. So I'm just planting a seed that this is something you want to think about. If you want to know a little bit more, jump on my LinkedIn profile. We can connect there and we can just strategize if you think that, your company should be investing in your brand at work for work because it serves them just as much as it serves you. And that's where I'll leave that. I just wanted to make sure I put it out there because this is something that can be game changing for yourself, but also your team and how you guys show up and the personal brand experience that you create on behalf of your work.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. This is why she's a pro. This is why she's a pro, but thank you. I did not put your LinkedIn profile on screen.
You
However,
can find me.
it will they can find you. Her smile, you cannot miss her. I promise you. But just in case you want to know a picture, if you look for this smile, you'll find her. You'll see her. That right there. You will find her easily. Cher Jones right on LinkedIn. Connect with her. Read her newsletter, y'all. Read her newsletter. It's really, really good. Just saying. I'm telling you a secret. So I am excited that you were here. I'm so glad. Like I shared before we started, this month is because of you, because last year when you came, your first year on the show, and you helped us kick off this month of Iron Sharpens Iron, celebrating Black history, I was like, there was not enough time for her. And I just needed you. And so I'm so excited.
Well,
So,
thank you for
gang,
having
thank you
me.
all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for coming prepared. Thank you for sharing with everyone. And thank you for the work that you're doing. And we have such good moderators.
Me too.
Let me just see. This is why you need good moderators.
Mhm.
Her LinkedIn is right there. It's Cher Jones. Okay, so go connect with her, gang, and get her great content out there that she's putting out. But also, be willing to open the conversations within your own organization because it's not just about you. It's not
And
just
they should
about
pay
you,
for it.
and they can pay for it.
And they
They
should.
can pay
It's
for it.
good business for them to do that.
Yeah, it really, really is.
Mhm.
So I'm going to get out of here. So this is what we gonna do. I'm going to say thank you all. Good night. For those who have registered, you can still jump in, ask your questions, have your our private conversation, and I will see you all back here on Friday night where our guest is none other than Kirk Nugent. He is going to teach us about scaling our business and ourselves and having the right mindset to go through that scaling process that we have to go, like growth and
Mhm.
moving
I'll
forward.
be tuning in
And
for that.
it will be a great tag on to what we just started. tonight with Miss Cher Jones, who is such a worthy lady. Good night, everybody.